Dear thespians, welcome to the final day of the Longino Virtual Music and Arts Conservatory. Today we are going to just review some different ways to help us with our memorization. So we'll start there and then we'll end talking about different apps that could be helpful to us as actors. I hope to see you both in our performance class tonight, and I hope we can incorporate everything that we've touched on, because that's literally all we've done. We've only had a week. It's been crazy. All the information we've really tried to dive into, but you know, something's better than nothing. Anyway, I hope you take the time to incorporate all the things that we've touched on into your craft as you work on this script, and when we get it on its feet, it's just everything and more than we thought it could be. Enjoy this morning's technique class.
What's your process? This is a good question for Jim Parsons. What's your process for preparing for each episode? How do you memorize the special Sheldon monologues or complicated science terminology that you have to have?
During the week, I start, I probably have them on me. I do. I make my
magic note
flashcards.
cards.
And like this is Act 1, Scene A. And then there's my first cue line. It's from Leonard. There's the L. It says, okay, see you later. And then on the back is my line. And I pace around my house and I drill them like some sort of ballet dancer learning moves, because largely because I don't understand a lot of what I'm talking about. And so I need the muscle memory to be in my mouth, at least, to be really ready to go, because if I do think about it, A, the right words will never occur to me, and B, the ones that do will just be wrong.
I don't want to be joined to another object by an inclined plane wrapped helically around an axis.
In what way are you screwed?
Mayim, what's your process for preparing for each episode?
Well, it's hard to follow up your process because it sounds very elaborate and efficient.
But not as
Mine is not
interesting.
like that. I mean, I've been memorizing scripts since I was, regularly since I was about 14 years old. I have it's kind of a photographic memory issue. It's not what I rely on, but it is how I remember things. I memorize the whole and not the parts. So that's why when they make changes and the pages change, I lose my...
I hear that.
I lose my picture of the page.
So the first tip that I have for you guys is to relax. I know this may sound hard in this form of struggle, this form of stress that you're going through, but it is going to be okay. I have been in this spot so many times, as has every other actor. You know, whether you're trying to learn lines for a school performance, or for an audition, or for a play that you're about to perform tomorrow, it is what it is. You can only do so much, and stressing about it won't help. So just relax. That's why I'm here. I'm going to try to help you out, so don't worry. Alright, so my second tip is to read. Prior to memorizing, read the script at least once time through. Make sure you engulf yourself in the story so that you can memorize it better, so you know what's going on. Nobody becomes a character by simply knowing words. It's the meaning behind the words that can make the world of a difference. So I have said before in a video, make sure you know the words so that you don't have to worry about them when you're in your audition, so you can worry about everything else. But in this kind of cramming situation, why don't you just learn the words while you're learning everything else? It makes it so much easier just to engulf yourself in everything that the character is, and that helps the lines come so much easier. I promise that it's worth your time to give any material that you have a good read through. It helps so much. I learned this the hard way, but it helps so much. Alright, so my third tip for you guys is to make sure that you know your character's objective. Basically, an objective is what your character wants, what they're striving toward. Objectives are so crucial, and they're so helpful at knowing why you're saying the lines that you are, because that's what you're reaching towards. And knowing your character's intentions, which is what they do to get their objective, is also important. So every word has a meaning behind it. Your character just doesn't say something to say it, you know what I mean? And also it's important to know your obstacles, so what your character is facing to get to those objectives. I also talk about those two in my video as well, but those character building traits are so important with understanding why you're saying what you are. Like I said, reading lines isn't just saying words. It's so much more. It's about character development and emotional triggers. This is the kind of stuff that is going to get you to that level. And that is a part of memorization, and really selling yourself in an audition or in a performance is all of that combined. Alright, so I know I've talked a lot about characterization and all that, and it is so important. I promise it'll help so much. So a huge technique that I recommend for memorization is the read, repeat, and combine technique. This technique has always worked best for me. It just helps me know everything in the order that it goes. So basically what you do with this technique is you read a line, you memorize one line. So say it's something like, let me pull out my monologue book. Say it's something like, I have done about 4,003,000 dishes in my lifetime. That's the first line. I have done about 4,003,000 dishes in my lifetime. So I have read that line, I have memorized that line, and I have repeated that line. Now it's time to combine. So the next line is, give or take a few. You see, lucky me. Give or take a few. You see, lucky me. Give or take a few. You see, lucky me. So that is the second line. So now I have to combine the first line and the second line. If you just memorize each line by line and never put it together, you're gonna be so confused. I've done that before. You know, you just focus on one line and you wanna get that, but then you try to go through the whole script and you don't know how it all fits together because you've only learned the lines separately. So this really helps me kind of map it out and learn it as one whole rather than a lot of separate lines. So let me try it. I have done about 4,003,000 dishes in my lifetime. Give or take a few. You see, lucky me. This is just give or take a few from 100 Monologues for Girls, if you were wondering. But the difficult thing about that technique with a script, like where you have lines with a scene partner, is being able to know when your scene partner's lines are, because you're obviously combining all of your lines, and that's great that you know the order, but you also have to know the scene partner's lines to know when you come in. And it obviously is very important to know your scene partner's lines because you want to know your cues. You want to be on top of that. So I have some recommendations on how to do just that. So for my tactile learners that like to write things down, do something like this where you can basically split the paper in half. Bad line, but bear with me. This is a way to really quiz yourself once you think you have your lines down, because what you can do is write all of your cue lines on this side and then write what your lines are over here. Also, I have never used this technique before, so I can't really attest to it, but I saw a video on YouTube about it a while back, so I will link it down below. But it's basically like writing down the first letter of every word in that line. So say my line was, I want to eat pickles today. So I would put I for I, and then W for want, T for two, E for eat, P for pickles, and then T for today. So basically I could study this and try to remember slowly, I want to eat pickles today. But that might be a way to learn it. Just write down all the letters of each line, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of map it out. So if you are a learner by hearing and you have a script, I would recommend definitely going over the script with a friend if you can. Getting somebody to read the lines will help so much rather than just going through it in your own head. It really helps you to be able to develop those characterizations when you have somebody to play off of. Even though it may not be your scene partner, you can kind of get more emotional that way, be able to emotionally attach to what that character is, who they are. But if you don't have somebody there to read with within these next 24 hours that you're learning this, you can even do something on your phone where you like record the other person's lines. Obviously this isn't going to be exact because your timing could be off and stuff, but it can definitely be helpful so that you can hear those cue lines and be able to say your lines in return. Or there's also apps. I've heard of the rehearsal app being really cool. I haven't tried it, but I think it's basically that kind of process where you can enter the scene partner's lines and somehow be able to go through them. And just in general, for all of my visual learners trying to memorize a script quickly, sometimes it may be helpful to associate lines with images in your head.
Lines can be tough, but I'm going to show you a proven way that's 2,500 years old, and even Shakespeare used it to memorize lines. Check this out. There's actually a very fast and easy way to memorize your lines. It's called the mind palace or method of loci. It dates back thousands of years, all the way back to 477 BC. And Shakespeare even used this in the Globe Theatre in London when he wanted his actors to memorize their lines. Here's the concept of how this works. In the window in your room right now, I want you to imagine two bumblebees, and they're buzzing in that window, bzzz, and they're carrying a huge question mark. So look at the window and you see two bees flying in and they're carrying a question mark. And on the chair, I want you to imagine a noble person, and they're in wind and they're in snow and the weather is all around them. And now on the wall in your room, I want you to imagine a human brain. And the brain is up there and it's just in pain and it's suffering. A human brain in pain or suffering. And imagine that on your wall. Now let's go back. Flying through the window, you had two bees and they were carrying a question mark. On the chair in your room, you had a noble person and their wind and snow, weather was all around them. And on the wall, you had a human brain and it was in pain or it was suffering. So you may be wondering why I had you just do this. Well, you may not know it, but I just took the first few lines of Hamlet's famous soliloquy in the Shakespearean play, To Be or Not to Be, and we turned those into pictures and we placed those pictures around a room to give us cues to memorize the lines. In the window, we had two bees flying in with a question mark. That reminds us to say, to be or not to be, that is the question. On the chair, we had a noble person surrounded by weather, because the next phrase is, weather, 'tis nobler. A noble person in weather to remind us of weather, 'tis nobler. And then the next line is, in the mind to suffer. So on the wall, we had a mind and a brain, and it was suffering. It was in pain. So to say all those in a sequence, we would say, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer. So you may be wondering, how did Shakespeare use this to memorize lines? Well, when he had the Globe Theater constructed, he actually had this in mind in the architecture. He had 5 doors built, and each one of these doors were different colors. He had 5 columns built, and each one of these columns were different colors. The 5 doors and the 5 columns were locations where his actors would imagine their lines and see them interacting with the columns of the doors on all the different colors, helped too to distinguish the doors and the columns. Not only that, they would use paintings, or they would use the steps coming up to the stage. They would use the exit as other locations to use to memorize their lines. Then they would take whatever they wanted to say and they would create pictures for it, brain triggers, just like the 2 bees flying in the window. And they would see them on one of the columns, or they would see it on the door, or they would see it on the painting or the exit. And all over their theater, they would have brain triggers to remind them of where their lines were. So if they were ever in the middle of a play and they got stumped for a second and they couldn't remember where they were, they would simply go around the theater in their mind. The cues, the images on the locations would tell them what they needed to say. An important thing to remember is they always went in the same order around the theater, going to each location in the same order. Then, if they wanted to remember to be or not to be, they would put 2 bees mentally on that first column. That is the question. They would imagine a question mark on the next location, which might have been a door. And that's how they would use the Globe Theater to memorize their lines. You can create your very own mind palace. Stand in the doorway of every single one of your rooms and number 5 pieces of furniture in that room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go to the next room, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Go to the next room, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Number 5 pieces of furniture in every one of your rooms. Then when you get done, close your eyes and say them forwards and backwards until you know them cold. These locations are going to be your very own mind palace. Then take your lines, turn your lines into pictures, and imagine them around the pieces of furniture in your house. So then when you're up on the stage, you just think back to your house, and the pictures you have imagined on the furniture in your house will tell you what your lines are.
So it might be helpful for you to take a moment to think about which memorization techniques go best with your learning style. For myself, the mind pictures, it seems kind of complicated, but when he did it, I will never forget that Shakespeare line, right? I had the picture of those 2 bees in my mind. Usually I do the read, repeat, and combine method. I also do methods with a mirror in front of me. Like I'll be looking in a mirror so I can watch my face and my reactions and all that. And then I'll say the line as I'm looking in the mirror. And then when I look down, I'll look at my script and I only speak the line when I'm making eye contact with myself. That's if I don't have anyone to practice with. I do like to record all of the lines. That way I can listen to the lines, myself saying the lines as I'm in my car and try to say the lines with myself. One more tip on that, it's best to learn lines without any when you're just trying to memorize something and you're not in a pinch, without any emotion, just be able to spit them out, spit them out, spit them out, spit them out. That way you're not stuck in a rut and you're more truthful with your listening and reacting. Because if you practice the line, let's see, well, that can be the line, let's see, right? And if every time you're working on the memorization, unless you're doing a monologue, when you can just make it the same every time, let's see, and then your partner says something to you like, hey, I heard there's $500 under mom's bed. And then you go, let's see, because that's just the way you practice it. It's like, you know, I don't know. You guys know what I'm trying to say. All right, so now let's just end with diving into some apps that would be helpful for us.
I'm going to take you through some of the applications that I have on my cell phone, and I'm using an Apple phone. So if you have an Android, it might be a little bit different, and I'm not quite sure how the Android is compatible with some of the applications, just to give you a heads up. But let's get right into my cell phone and the applications I use as a theater artist. One of my favorite apps that I use every single day is Piano Tracks. Now, this application is available on not only your phone, but on your computer. It's subscription-based, so it does cost about $9.99 a month, but I feel like it is absolutely worth every single penny. You can literally scroll through their hundreds and hundreds of albums they have for musicals, and you can click on one and you can, for example, let's say I'm working on Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. I can click on that album and I can see that they have all of the songs listed and it's just the accompaniment, but they also have the melody track. So if you want to learn the songs and you need to hear that melody, if you don't play piano too well, it will have it on here for you. You can also save my tracks, and you can, right now, for example, I'm working on Fun Home the musical, and so I have a lot of the Fun Home songs in here. For example, you can see I have the melody line for Telephone Wire on here, and then I have the same song with just the piano version. Great way to practice, learn new music, and not have to go directly to your the person that plays your songs for you and records songs for you on a weekly basis. So it really does save money and time. So check Piano Tracks out. The next application is going to be apps that will help you learn your lines. So there are two in here that I've used before. Line Learner is a great one. The light version, which is the version you're seeing on the screen next to me here, is free. And you can literally go in and record your dialogue and the dialogue of the other people in the script and play it back and forth. And it makes it really easy to learn your lines when you're working on a new show. Also, Script Rehearser is a great way to learn your lines. You can type your script in here and the dialogue pops up, and then you hit play and it will say the lines for you. The computer will, so you don't have to actually record it, and you can click like what person you're playing. Really great app to, again, learn lines. So check those two out if you have trouble learning your lines on your own, and it's a great way to learn your script. I'm always recording my rehearsals, my lessons, my voice lessons, my coachings, any type of music that I'm working on when I'm working with an accompanist. I use my Voice Memos application that's free in your iPhone. It is easy, it is simple, it comes with your iPhone. The best application to use when you're working on a show, learning music, and if you're also recording your lessons, which is a great way to go back and to view later. Because I'm very focused on nutrition and being a healthy artist, I use the Daily Dozen application on my phone every single day. It allows me to go through and check off if I've had enough of fruits or veggies or greens, and it makes it very easy to kind of keep up to date on if I'm eating healthy, how much am I eating, and gives me a guideline that makes it a bit easier on a daily basis to eat a healthy, nutritious diet. As artists, we are always looking to get tickets, and not only just tickets to musicals, but tickets at a really great price. And I use TodayTix to be able to access any musicals and at a really inexpensive price so that I can see more and get more bang for my buck. I don't use this one on my phone, but I use this one on my iPad on the computer. This application is called StageRight, and what it does is it allows you to document your staging and your choreography and make it something where you can send PDFs to your actors or your design team. You can share it with a choreographer, and it makes it a way for you to document the movement within a musical. We see a lot of Broadway shows using StageRight, a lot of tours, a lot of cruise ships, and if you're someone that's really a director or a choreographer, I would really encourage you to invest in this application because it makes your job much easier and gives you a way to document it versus keeping it just on pad and paper, especially if you're deciding that you're going to do the show again. Gives you a way to save it for later.
All right, that's all, folks. I know some of those apps aren't free, but if this is something that you consider a professional pursuit that you want for yourself, it might be worth putting some of your allowance money towards that or giving up something else so you can have like the $5 or $9 a month towards those apps. Or if you pursue this in college, remember to come back and watch this video so you know what apps work for you. All right, that's all for today. Remember to do your technique review and read your script. Bye, friends.